It's simple time once again, and this is Chef Tatong, at magluluto naman tayo ng isa namang masarap and simple na recipe na sigurado akong magugustuhan ng pamilya nyo. Medyo fancy yung gagawin natin today, but very simple to do. So, simulan na natin. Let's get cooking!
Simple, simple. Luto na, ha.
What we're cooking today is a very European-inspired dish, no? Because we're cooking chicken and mushrooms in cream, no? At may konti siyang white wine. Pero alam mo, don't be intimidated kung white wine yung gagamitin natin. Kasi may trick ako sa inyo. Instead of white wine, may gagamitin natin na kayang-kaya yung gawin sa bahay. So let's start cooking now. Meron tayong chicken dito. This is around 3/4 kilo of chicken fillet, which I cut into cubes, no? So around 1-inch cube. So halo to siya. May chicken breast ako and meron din akong chicken thigh. So medyo balanced, may fatty part and meron tayong lean part. So I just season it with salt and pepper. Generous amount of pepper. I really like pepper in my food. Yeah. Then I just mix up my chicken pieces. And I have some flour here. I have 4 tablespoons of flour, and I just, coat the chicken pieces in the flour. And I have butter. I'm using here 4 tablespoons of butter. And a little bit of oil. So just a little bit of canola oil. Warm up my pan. Melt the butter. So why we're using a combination of butter and oil is that butter burns quickly, no? So we're just adding a little bit of oil para ma-mitigate yung burning temperature niya. So now we can saute at a higher temperature without burning our food. Just saute, spread out our chicken. So the flour will also act as our thickener later on. Very important when we're cooking is that we take time to sear our meat. Because the searing, yung pag-brown kasi ng meat, hindi lang yun kasi kulay. Nagbibigay din siya ng magandang lasa, which is malinamnam, no? So, that's what we're doing right now. So, this is a very nice recipe where you can use it not only as a main ulam, but it can also be like a sauce for a pasta or served with potatoes. So, you see, hindi nagiging watery yung ating chicken when we're sauteing it because of the flour. The flour absorbs the moisture. Yan. Saute. Yan. And you notice that, the chicken is already a bit brown on the edges. We'll just put our chicken aside. Yan. And we heat up the pan again. And what we do now is we saute our onions. So we saute our onions first because we want to get the sweetness. Sweetness yung gusto natin dito sa ating onions. And I season it with a little salt. So, I season my onions with a little salt to bring out the flavor. Now, it's translucent. Now, I add my garlic. Saute as well. But I don't want to brown my garlic. My intention is not to brown the garlic. I just like the sweetness and the aroma of the garlic. So, I just saute it a little bit. And now, I add my mushroom. So, it's very important, though I'm using canned mushrooms, is to season it properly with enough salt and pepper. And also, what you do is that you have to saute it in a little oil or butter. Why? Because there are certain flavor compounds in the mushrooms na hindi lalabas pag walang oil or fat. So, what we are doing right now is we are bringing out as much flavor as possible. Alam na natin, canned mushroom siya. Wala na siya masyadong flavor. Pero, because of what we are doing, lalabas pa rin yung mushroom flavor kahit papaano. Because we are doing it this way. We are sauteing it. And, now, I've sauteed my mushrooms. I'm going to add back my chicken. So, ang chicken, ibabalik ko sa pan. Look at that. Ngayon, we're supposed to deglaze the pan in white wine. Oh, what if wala tayong white wine sa bahay? So, ito yung pwede nyong gawin. I use clear soda. Any brand of clear soda. You add a teaspoon. So, this is 3/4 cup of clear soda. 1 teaspoon of vinegar. And a tablespoon of white rum. Yan. That's it. That's my white wine replacement. And what I will do, I will just pour over my chicken. So, I will just leave it there without adding anything else and let it reduce, no? Ibig sabihin ng reduce, evaporate natin yung liquid so that the flavors will intensify. Yan. And don't worry na kahit meron tayong sinasabing rum or alcohol, once it reaches a boiling temperature, everything will go to the atmosphere. Everybody will go to the air, so it's safe even for kids to eat, no? What we have here is we have some potatoes which I already par-cook. So, ibig par-cook, pinakuluan ko siya, binalatan ko siya, I cut it into like 1-inch cube or mahigit sa 1-inch cubes, and I just boiled it in salted water, no? So what I'm going to do, I'll heat up my pan, and I have some butter. It makes food very delicious. Yan. So I just melt the butter, and I immediately put my garlic, no? So I don't wait for my butter to be totally melted. I want to add my butter because our objective here is to infuse the garlicky flavor in our butter. Again, we're not toasting the garlic, you know. I pour my melted butter and my heated garlic, no? Heated lang siya kasi hindi siya toasted, no? In the potatoes, I add smoked paprika or Spanish paprika, around 1 teaspoon, yeah. And I season with salt, just enough salt, and black pepper. And I have a little bit of dried rosemary, no? I will just pound it a little just to be able to allow it to release more of its aroma, no? So very little, no? And especially pag dry rosemary, I really like to pound it, or else sagabal sa pagkain kasi medyo matigas siya. I add it to my potatoes, yan. And I have fresh parsley, around a tablespoon or so, and I just toss it. Look at that. It's already very beautiful, no? Look at that. Then I just add some oil, just enough to coat the bottom, and I just fry my potatoes, okay? Just hot enough, and let it fry. And you will notice also on the other side, ang aking chicken, nag-reduce na yung aking white wine, kunwari white wine, no? It's already drying up. Now, it's time to add my cream. So I'm using cooking cream. You can use all-purpose cream, but you have to cook it at a very low temperature so it doesn't break. So I'm turning down my heat, low heat, low heat. Then I add my cream. Then cover it, let it simmer. Yeah. While I'm waiting for my potatoes to brown. Yung potatoes ko, silipin natin. It's beginning to brown. Toss. And we let it continue to fry. And my chicken is already beginning to simmer in the cream. Let it simmer, let it cook. Yan. Sometimes you have to be very careful at this part. So you add the cream last and cook it at a very gentle temperature. But here, I'm using cooking cream. It's really intended for cooking. Medyo mag-boil siya ng konti, okay lang siya. Hindi siya magbi-blister. Kasi notice ba, nagluluto ka ng cream dishes sometimes, medyo nagbi-blister, medyo may mga freckles yung ating cream sauce. Here, it's going to be beautiful. The chicken is already cooked, but what we're doing is we just want everything to melt and the flavors develop. Okay? So this one, a little bit more, probably a minute or two. Our potatoes are getting beautifully golden and crisp on the side. And our chicken is done. But before that, I will just, season it a little bit more with salt. Diba, remember, you only season the chicken. We season the onions, but the cream and all that we haven't seasoned yet. So now, it's time for me to season. And I'm ready to plate. Chicken is also done. Looks so fancy, looks so classy, but so simple to do. Tandaan nyo, kahit sino kaya magluto, basta simple. Kaya here it is, our chicken mushroom in cream and pan-roasted potatoes. Simple! Did you enjoy this video? Please follow and subscribe to our official pages and of course, tag a friend as well.